You're listening to Bloomberg Businessweek with Massar and Tim Stenovec on Bloomberg Radio.
Well, living a stress-free financial life, it's not actually that complicated, at least according to our next guest. Here are some of the things that he says will get you there. Okay, keep roughly 20% of your net worth in cash. Don't have a joint bank account with your partner or your spouse. And if you get into Harvard or an Ivy League school, go no matter how much it costs. And if you don't get into Harvard or an Ivy League school, then think very carefully about that college.
We talk about that a lot. And I love this joint bank account. We've been talking about this a lot in the newsroom. These are all some of the strategies outlined in a new book. It's called No Worries, How to Live a Stress-Free Financial Life. We've got the author, Dillian, with us. He's editor and publisher of the daily Dirtnap. It's a market newsletter for investment professionals. Earlier in his career, he spent 7 years trading at Lehman Brothers, if you remember that firm. And you may recognize him because he's a former Bloomberg opinion columnist. Really great person to have in here. We've been having fun with this book and talking a lot about it in the newsroom.
Okay, so I want to start with the one that's probably gotten the most controversy here in the newsroom when I share it. You have this really strange financial arrangement with your wife.
Spreadsheet?
Whom you've been married to for a very long time.
26 years.
And you are still married to her.
So apparently the spreadsheet works, the strategy.
But let me tell you guys how strange this is. You own 87% of the house, and she owns 13% of the house. How is that the key to a stress-free financial life?
So typically when a man and woman get together and they get married and they combine their finances, they have joint accounts, people are still mentally keeping track of whose money is whose. They think, well, I put in $500 and I put in $300. And if somebody spends the other person's money, like in their mind, what is the other person's money, then it can lead to arguments. And you know, I've known some couples, lots of couples, that will get into knockdown, drag-out fights over $50. And the easy solution to this is just keep your money separate. Just absolutely. So when I got married in 1997, I said to my wife, I was like, we are going to keep our money separate. And she agreed. And in 26 years, we have fought about a bunch of things, but we have never fought about money. And we basically just Zelle money back and forth to each other. Like that's
you really do that?
Yeah, all the time. Like basically our deal is I pay 2/3 of the groceries because I eat 2/3 of the food. So if she pays for $120 for groceries, I'll Zelle her $80. And we do this all the time. Before Zelle, it was a little hard. We literally wrote checks back and forth to each other.
Okay, she loves you, right?
Yeah.
Okay, just making
They're
sure.
They're still married. They're still married.
I actually have somebody getting in touch right now saying, does she love him? Like, you know, yeah, okay, so confirming. Okay, you guys are in love. Okay,
there's more questions we could ask, but we're not going to go there. What about things like college? And I think Tim and I talk about this so much. And we had a colleague who came in the other day whose son is going to not an Ivy League. It's a small liberal arts school. It's going to cost him over $90,000 a year. And we're like, this is insane.
Typically, it's those kind of colleges are the worst deals. A liberal arts school that maybe is somewhat rigorous, but not as rigorous or hard to get into as an Ivy League school, and they don't quite have the reputational clout. The reason you will pay anything to go to someplace like Harvard, it's not because of the education. It has zero to do with the education. It has to do with the people that you're with.
The network, right?
The network, the connections. You are going to school with people who will be president. You will go to school with people who will be CEOs. Your Rolodex will be full of these people. Your unemployment rate will be zero. If you go to a lower tier school that costs $90,000 a year, you don't have those benefits. You're going to graduate with $300,000 in debt, and your earnings power won't be able to support the student loan payments.
Is any student loan debt okay in your view?
So what I say in the book is that you should have no more, unless you go to a top tier school, you should have no more than $40,000 in debt. And the reason that is let's say...
Jared, have you looked at how much school costs a year?
Oh,
Even
yeah,
for
absolutely.
Like, not top tier.
Combination of scholarships and grants and stuff like that. If you owe more than $40,000, you have to be able to pay it off in 5 years.
Right.
If you can't pay it off in 5 years, then you should go to a cheaper school or maybe not even go at all.
And you go into detail in the book about why student debt is so troubling for so many people. And a lot of it has to do with the government and the way that the government handles those student loan payments.
Can I talk about that for a second?
Yeah, talk about it for a second. We don't have a ton of time and there's some other stuff I want to get to, but mention that.
Income-based repayment plans are the worst thing in the world. This was passed in 2009, and basically the government means tests you and says, you know, you don't have to pay this $1,200 payment. You can pay this $300 payment, but then the balance is added to the back end of the loan. It's negatively amortizing, and that's why you have these people that go on Twitter. They said, you know, I borrowed $70,000. I paid my student loans for 20 years, and now I owe $100. How is this fair?
Oh, and by the way, in bankruptcy, it does not get erased.
It does not get erased.
Hey, a big takeaway that I have
If you
for your
die,
book.
it doesn't get erased. Like it goes off to somebody else, right?
Yeah.
It's true. I mean, my friends who are doctors, they had to like take life insurance policies out against each other. So like if they died, like
not
the student
funny.
loans
It's
would
not
get paid.
funny.
Seriously,
We
like
laugh,
before they had
but it's
kids.
not funny.
It's crazy
It
stuff.
hurts.
Okay, a big takeaway I had from your book is like conventional wisdom is, okay, don't buy that Starbucks coffee every day. Don't go out to lunch when you're at work. You argue don't sweat the small stuff, sweat the big stuff, sweat the house, sweat the car, sweat the partner, and sweat college.
Yep.
Don't worry about those small expenses.
Yep. It's literally just math, okay? I get a Dunkin' Donuts every day when I drive to work. I get an iced coffee even in the winter, so I'm a psycho, right? So
Well, I think maybe people might have thought you were a psycho with the spreadsheet and the marriage, but anyway.
We're going to table that for
so
now.
it's $3.80. If I do that 225 days a year, it comes out to $900 a year. If I do that for 40 years, it's $36,000, okay? If I get a house that's 500 square feet bigger, I will pay an extra $120,000 in interest on a mortgage. So one decision costs me $120,000 in interest versus thousands of decisions cost me $36,000. The little things don't matter at all.
Right.
At all. And people can give up large luxuries. If you get a slightly smaller house, you're not sitting in the house saying, this is terrible, I hate this house. But if you're forced to give up coffee every day for the rest of your life, it is miserable.
God, there's so many.
True.
Yeah, no. We talked about this before. I feel like I want to go there because we talk so much about it. But you say you got investment basics. It's a chapter that's purely educational. You want to begin with something that's boring, but you say it's for your own good. That means for all of you who are watching and listening, the Federal Reserve, perhaps you have heard of it. We talk about it all the time. Why is it so important that people understand about the Fed? We have a very smart audience. They know what they do. But why do you say generally it's important?
I mean, just think about like very recent history. The S&P was at 4150. And Christopher Waller gave a speech where he was hinting at rate cuts. Now the S&P is at 4850. And the Fed hasn't even cut rates.
Correct.
It was just on this slight change in stance from the Fed where it eased financial conditions and unleashed a ton of liquidity. The Fed really has a huge amount of control over the stock market and the economy. So that's why I put that first in that chapter, because the average person on the street, they know who the president is, but they don't know who the chairman of the Federal Reserve is. And the chairman of the Fed has much more influence over their daily life than the president does. I tell people this all the time. I don't really, outside of like some huge change in tax rates, I don't really care who is president. I care who's chairman of the Fed.
Okay, we have 30 seconds left. Controversial to have 20% of your net worth in cash. Again, you say this is for stress-free financial life, not to become wealthy in life. Talk about asset allocation just in the last 30 seconds that we have.
You should be diversified across asset classes. If you invest in stocks, you are not diversified. If you invest in stocks and bonds, you are not diversified. You need to have a mix of financial assets and real assets. You need some commodities, real estate, and gold to be fully diversified.
All right.
You were hesitant to write about gold in the book you wrote, but because you unleash the gold bugs when you do that. But
It's super important.
okay.
I love this. A house is not an investment.
I know. Scary stuff.
Listen, there's so much there. We scratched the
Where
surface.
was this when I was 17? When I was 17 years old.
See, skip the small liberal arts school and just pick up this book and figure it out. Jared, thank you.
Yeah, come back, Jared. This was a fun conversation. Jared Dillian is the author of No Worries, How to Live a Stress-Free Financial Life. The book is brand new. It is out today.